The day I found an auction notice stapled to my ranch gate, something quiet inside me snapped. Not loud anger. Not a shouting match. Just a click like when a gate latch finally drops into place. This land, my father's land, never belonged to the HOA. It never would. But there it was, in black ink, with the HOA seal, telling the world my ranch would be sold at noon on Saturday. I stood at the end of the gravel drive with a mug of coffee, steam curling into the chilly air. Every small sound felt louder this morning. The creak of the cedar boards, the lazy slap of the porch flag against the pole, the crunch of my boots when I stepped off the last riser. Across the road, Karen HOA president. Pearl necklace at 7 a.m. was already glaring over her sunglasses like she'd written, "God's rules and I'd broken them. That posting doesn't belong here," I said, tearing the notice free. The staple fought me. So did she. "It does," Karen said, folding her arms. "Unpaid compliance fees, encroachment, fence height, unapproved outbuilding. We gave you notice. You ignored it. That makes your property eligible under our bylaws. My property isn't under your bylaws. Everything within Oak Creek Meadows is under our bylaws." She tapped her clipboard like a judge's gavel. And this, she plucked the flyer from my hand, stays. I didn't raise my voice. My dad always said, never shout from land you own. I set my coffee on the fence post and stared at the sign again. "You're trespassing," I said. "Take it down or I will." Karen smirked, lifted her phone and dialed. "Yes, 911. I'm at 381 County Road 9. The homeowner is threatening me. He's tearing down HOA property and becoming aggressive." Sheriff's siren came faint at first, then grew like summer thunder rolling over the hills. On the porch, my wife Beth stepped out, wrapping my father's old flannel around her shoulders. She held the original deed in both hands like a family Bible. "Don't let her rattle you," she said. "Your dad's survey stakes are still out there by the north fence. The HOA never touched this parcel." I nodded once. There's a tone I take when I'm done being pushed. It's flat and calm, like the surface of our lake right before sunrise. "Karen," I said, "you've made a mistake. This ranch was here long before Oak Creek Meadows. Your map's wrong. Your notice is wrong. And your authority ends at my cattle guard." The sheriff pulled up. It was Daniels new enough to still smell like Academy starch, but old enough to read a room. He looked at me, then at Karen, then at the sign. "Morning," he said, tipping his hat toward Beth. "We got a call." Karen started talking before he finished. "Officer, this man threatened me and removed legal HOA postings. This property is in violation, and Ma'am Daniels said," voice patient but lined with caution, "HOA enforcement on private property depends on membership, deed restrictions, and plat inclusion." "You have those papers?" "I have our bylaws. That's not the same." Beth handed Daniels the deed, yellowed, corners soft from decades of being taken out only when someone needed to be reminded who we were. "Recorded in 1978, she said. "Meets and bounds. Not in the HOA. Not annexed. Not encumbered." Daniels flipped through. "Okay," he looked at me. "You pulling the posting down?" "After I photograph it," I said. I held up my phone, caught the HOA seal, the signature, the auction date. I wanted the record. Not to humiliate. To document. "My dad used to say, 'Paper outlives noise,'" Officer Karen said, voice tight. "He's violating our rules." "No, ma'am," he said. "Not if he's not subject to your rules." He handed her the copy of the auction flyer I'd already torn down. "You'll want to take this off his gate and handle it civilly." Her mouth opened, then shut. I could see the calculation in her eyes. Retreat or escalate. She chose the thing she always chose. Pressure. "You'll regret this," she said. "We control the roads, the drainage, and the common area access. We can make life very difficult." Oh, I smiled without warmth. "You don't control my road? Everything beyond the Oak Creek sign is ours." "My road starts at County 9, I said, "and every one of your members crosses it to get home." Something flickered behind her glasses. She didn't know. Or she knew a version of a story someone once told at a board meeting and never checked. The siren's echo had barely faded when Daniels lowered his voice and said to me, "If there's a dispute about jurisdiction, take it to the recorder in the court. Don't handle it here." "I won't," I said, and I meant it. Karen left with a parting shot, a promise that their auction would proceed Saturday at noon. I watched her walk away, shoulders rigid, tapping angry notes into her phone. Beth put a hand on my back. The flannel smelled like cedar and old winters. "Your dad used to say, if they come for a fence post, they're really coming for a mile of fence." "He was right," I said. I gathered the flyer, the staple, and the pieces of my patience. Then I went inside to pull records plats, easements, the old access license my father once drafted on a typewriter, one with the clause I remembered but had never needed to use. I poured another coffee. The lake beyond the cottonwoods lay flat as glass. I wasn't angry. I was awake. By noon, I'd covered the dining table with documents, the 1978 deed, the 1981 survey, a 1994 letter from the county engineer, and, most important, a one-page license agreement my father had signed back when Oak Creek Meadows was just a cowboy's pipe dream on a developer's napkin. It granted the developer the right to use our ranch road as the only ingress and egress for the subdivision 4, as long as they acted in good faith and without attempting to encumber, annex, or diminish the grantor's property interest. Violate the good faith clause, and the license could be revoked with immediate effect. Beth ran a finger under the clause, like she was reading scripture. "Your dad wasn't just a stubborn man," she said softly. "He was careful." I took photographs of everything. Then I drove to the county recorder. The building is old limestone that cools the air even in summer, and the clerk still knows my name. "Mr. Harper," she said, "what brings you in?" "Need certified copies," I said. "Deeds, plats, and this license agreement. And I need to see the Oak Creek Meadows map, including any annexations." She pulled the plat books with a grunt. We flipped through pages. Oak Creek was platted around our parcel like a horseshoe. Annexations. To both to the south? My ranch? Not included. Not even a dotted line that touched our fences. "What about HOA declarations?" I asked. She slid over a thin stack. "I read them all. Their authority extended to all lots within Oak Creek Meadows subdivision, as recorded in plat. 2 to 164, not my land. Not even the corner pasture where the Black Angus liked to sleep." I took my copies and drove to the bank. The HOA's clubhouse sat on a sliver of land along the lake shore, once part of a ranch that the developer had carved out. I'd heard rumors they were behind on dues collections and struggling to keep the pool open. That didn't interest me. What did interest me was the tiny notation on a 2003 survey showing the clubhouse parcel had a ground lease for parking on a strip of land marked Harper Tract. Easement B. I dug into my father's blue metal, file box at home, and found it. Easement be granted for parking for the use of Oak Creek property owners and guests, provided no adverse action is taken against the grantor's property. Another good faith clause. "Another lever?" Beth squeezed my shoulder. "You're not going nuclear, are you?" She asked. "No," I said. "I'm turning on the lights." I called an attorney old friend, name's Ruiz. Straight shooter. "Send me scans," he said. "I'll draft 2 things. A notice of non-association and a revocation of license for access held in escrow. We'll also file a temporary restraining order to halt any attempted auction." "You think they'll still try?" "With folks like this," he said, "momentum is a drug. They think action equals authority. But paper outlives noise." We filed that afternoon. The judge granted a temporary restraining order in chambers, effective, immediately halting any sale or public posting regarding my property. Ruiz filed the notice of non-association with the county. Harper Ranch is not a member of Oak Creek Meadows HOA. No deed restriction. No consent. No jurisdiction. He also lodged a certified copy with the sheriff at 5 p.m. I drove the north fence line with my old survey map folded on the dash. The survey stakes white tops, nicked by 1,000 mowers, still stood where my dad had driven them in. I stopped at each, pressed my palm to the wood and whispered, "Still here," a habit from childhood. A pledge I didn't realize I'd kept for 40-plus years. On my way back, I saw a lawn chair gathering at the HOA clubhouse. Karen and 3 board members, Lyle with the polo shirts, Trish with the sun visor, and a new guy who hadn't learned to keep quiet yet. They spoke in urgent little flares of words, pointing at our road, at my gate. At the lake, I parked at the edge of my easement. Strip easement, be calm, polite. I walked over with a file folder tucked under my arm. "You can't be here," Karen said, standing so fast her chair scraped. "I'm on my land," I said, and handed her the certified filings. "This is a court order halting your auction. This is a recorded notice that we're not in your HOA. And this." I took out a single page with a red tab as a reminder of easement. "Be your clubhouse parking sits on our land. By a revocable license contingent on good faith. The access road your neighbors use? Same thing. This letter is not a revocation. Not yet. It's a notice of breach. Any further attempt to encumber our property will trigger revocation," Lyle swore. Trish went pale. The new guy muttered, "We messed up." Karen's mouth thinned to a line. "You're bluffing." A deputy's SUV rolled in Daniels again. He nodded to me, then faced Karen. "Ma'am, I'm here to serve you with the temporary restraining order. There will be no auction. Any further postings on Mr. Harper's property will be removed." She tried to talk over him. He lifted a hand. "No, ma'am. Quiet now." The sun dropped behind the cottonwoods and threw a gold stripe across the lake. A breeze lifted the flag over our porch. In that moment, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. The kind of tired that comes after a long winter when you can finally open the barn doors and let the light in. "Karen," said softly, "we could have been neighbors. Just neighbors. You chose something else." She didn't answer. But the new guy did, barely above a whisper. "What happens if he revokes the road?" "You start walking," I said. "Or the HOA finds a new access, which you don't have." They looked at one another. Paper outlives noise, and daylight is a truth serum. Saturday came. Noon was supposed to be their auction. At 11:57 a.m., a handful of curious neighbors gathered near the clubhouse with iced coffees and nervous jokes. Folks like a show, small towns like a reckoning. The restraining order had already canceled the sale, but rumor outpaces paper. I stood by my gate with Beth, watching hawks circle high and slow at 11:59. I saw Karen sprinting across the grass, phone to ear, a flyer flapping in her hand. She hadn't told her board. She hadn't told anyone. She'd told the auction company to come anyway. Momentum is a drug. Then, at 12 o'clock sharp, a county courier rolled up to the clubhouse, stepped out, and asked for the HOA president. Karen lifted her chin like a soldier, accepting a medal. The courier handed her a sealed envelope and said, "You're served." Inside, a court order expanding the TRO and a notice of hearing. The sheriff's office had also attached a memo. Any interference with the Harper Ranch would be treated as contempt. 3 minutes. Later, 12:03 p.m., I walked from my gate to the clubhouse steps with Ruiz at my side. He'd driven in that morning, tie loose, grin easy. "Time," he said, checking his watch. "Let's end this clean." I addressed the gathered neighbors in the slow, plain way my father taught me. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to correct the record." I held up the deed, the plat, the license agreements, the TRO. This ranch is not in the HOA. It never was. Any postings, fines, or threats against us are void. From this moment, any further action triggers revocation of your access road license and your clubhouse parking license. That means no road, no parking. Murmurs rippled. A man in a ball cap, name's Walt, good guy who helps pull calves in, Spring raised a hand. "We didn't know," he said. "We thought you were being difficult." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not here to shame. I'm here to stop the nonsense." Karen tried to seize the moment. "Neighbors," she said, "he's extorting us. He wants to shut down our roads," and I turned to her, calm as a pond. You posted an illegal auction notice on my gate and called 911 when I removed it. You claimed authority you didn't have. You had a dozen chances to back down. You chose escalation. Ruiz handed her another document. And this, he said, is a demand for an emergency board meeting open to membership. Agenda: acknowledging the court order, rescinding all actions against Mr. Harper, and addressing leadership changes. Leadership changes? She scoffed. Ma'am, Ruiz said, your misrepresentations expose the HOA to liability. If your board doesn't act, a receiver will. Or a recall vote will. Today. Neighbors don't like bullies, not when the facts are laid out on a picnic table with lemonade and a deputy watching from his SUV. Walt spoke again. We're voting, he said. Right now. Heads nodded. Trish Pellviser's shaky voice whispered, I resign. Lyle followed with a mutter and a shrug. Karen glared at me with something like hatred, but there was fear there too. Not fear of me. Fear of paper. Fear of truth daylighted in front of her neighbors. You can't evict an HOA, she said. I looked at the clubhouse door. Watch me. I walked 10 steps to the edge of the parking lot, the line between their clubhouse slab and my easement B. I held up the revocation notice that Ruiz had drafted and kept in escrow. Because your board attempted to encumber our property in bad faith, and because you continue to refuse to rescind those actions, the parking license is revoked effective immediately. You have 30 minutes to clear vehicles. After that, vehicles will be towed. I handed a copy to Deputy Daniels, who nodded and set a timer on his phone. Gasps. Protests. Then a slow scraping of chair legs and the soft and embarrassed shuffle of neighbors moving their cars. Not mean, not gloating. Just the consequence of choices. Within 20 minutes, the lot was empty. My land looked like my land again, scrub, gravel, and a wind that carried the smell of lake water and cottonwood leaves. Road access? Karen said, daring me to go that far. Suspended, I said, pending a proper board meeting, public apology, and recorded rescission of all actions against us. You'll have temporary access for 72 hours to arrange alternative parking and schedule that meeting. If you do what's right, the road stays. If you don't, the road closes. That's how you evict an HOA without touching a single front door. Remove their false authority. Remove their parking, and remove their presumption that the road they travel is theirs by right. It never was. It was ours on loan. By evening, the board had resigned. The membership elected a caretaker committee, Walt among them, to unwind the mess, adopt a civility policy, and admit the truth in a recorded letter. Harper Ranch is independent. The auction was a farce. The 911 call was reckless. The HOA's house would be cleaned. At sunset, Beth and I sat on the porch steps. The lake lay calm. You could hear kids laughing to coves over and the distant hum of a pontoon. I poured sweet tea for both of us and set Dad's flannel over my knees. It's quiet, she said. Finally, I said, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of him, I said, tapping the deed. He wrote the rules without ever needing them. I just turned on the lights. We watched the flag move once, just a soft thump against the pole. And for the first time in years, I felt something simple and steady return. Like a fence line you've walked so often your boots know each rut by heart. Sometimes standing up for what's right isn't a shout. It's a stack of papers, a steady voice, and the patience to let truth do the heavy lifting. Ever had an HOA overstep like this? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. If you believe home and family are worth defending, hit subscribe. Let's stand up together.